Welcome to Break Free to Brilliance podcast, empowering women in business through thought-provoking interviews and insights. Embrace your authentic power, explore the impact of your story, and discover how writing your best-selling book can amplify your message, authority, and the 3 I's: impact, influence, and income. Let each episode guide you towards brilliance in minutes. This is your host, Seema Giri.
Performance is celebrated, but sustainability is rarely questioned. We praise the grind, we normalize exhaustion, we call burnout dedication, and for years I did the same. Even while navigating autoimmune illness, I kept building, I kept mentoring, and on the outside, it looked like resilience. But inside, my body was negotiating a cost I had not fully acknowledged. And what I eventually learned is this: performance without alignment will always collapse. So this is your friend Seema, and you are listening to Break Free to Brilliance podcast. If you're tuning in while you are on the road or exercising or just taking the time out in the afternoon, I'm so happy you are here. And today's conversation may shift how you define success. When output becomes the identity, we override all warning signs. We shorten our sleep time, we tighten our posture, and we ignore stress signals, and eventually the body keeps score. So as you listen today, I want you to quietly ask yourself, is the pace I'm keeping sustainable for the life I say I want? By end of this conversation, you'll understand what optimized human performance actually means and why integration across physiology, mindset, and systems determine how far you can go. My guest today is Dr. Pat Boulong. She is a performance optimization strategist, functional medicine expert, and international best-selling author with over 30 years of clinical experience. Her distinct approach meets high performers where they are, addressing root causes, correcting what's holding them back, and amplifying existing strengths so they can achieve sustainable results without starting over or burning out. Her work centers on what she calls optimized human performance, a comprehensive method that aligns health, strategy, and execution. So welcome, Dr. Pat. I'm so happy you have joined us today.
You're welcome. I love being here. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Of course.
It's a perfect way to end the Friday.
Yes. What a great way to end a Friday. So, Pat, what drew me to your work is what it names something many high achievers quietly experience. You can be competent and you can be disciplined, you can be successful, and yet still feel misaligned internally. So I would love to start there. What is your story behind getting started in this line of work?
Well, I have, oh my God, there's like so many stories. They all kind of just flooded down the same channel, right? But what got me into this work is that I can remember when I went to go to chiropractic school. And I mean, I have a lot of stories, but this is the one that's coming to me right now. And I can remember my father asked me why I wanted to be a chiropractor. He goes, because chiropractors were quacks. And I said, oh my God, I said, you have a master's, in electrical engineering. And I said, clearly they didn't teach you something. And so we would have these banters going back and forth all the time. And I just said, I really felt called to help people. And then, and just when I decided to become a chiropractor at that time, I, was working at the University of Michigan Hospital as a patient relations advocate as an independent study. So they got me for free. And I never saw anybody get well. I mean, the only ward in the whole hospital that was happy was the maternity ward.
Yes.
Where they're just babies were delivered and people like suddenly forget how much pain there was involved in that. And, and it was a happy ward. But, people who I saw on a daily basis in there, they weren't doing so well, and they didn't look well. And, and we all have that, like joie de vivre and then we hit a wall around 40, 42, 45, somewhere in between there. And we started having signs and symptoms because we weren't paying attention to the signs and symptoms before. So when people, what I notice time and time again with high achievers, and that includes like mothers and fathers too, because we have so much on the table that we're dealing with, that when we get to that point and you're thinking like, oh my God, I'm just so tired. And at the end of the day, there's nothing left over for you. There's nothing left over for your relationship. I just thought there's a much better way to do this. And so I decided when I became a chiropractor that I was never going to fall victim to that. And I'm not and I was good for 9 years. And then, going into my 10th year, I just ended up doing way too much and without a lifeline. And I ended up getting burned out myself and selling my practice. So, but when helping people with that, I always ask them, like, what do you know about what you're looking for? And they didn't understand the signs and symptoms actually meant something that was accumulatory over a long period of time, and they didn't pay attention to them because they kept on hoping they would go away. And then 5 years later, they're still at the same place, if not worse, and taking another drug, for something. So when I talk to people about that, it's like, I used to, like, what do you want to do? Like, do you want to, like, you can turn back the hands of time by, like looking at like, what your diet is and understanding that. And a lot of people who are in that high executive mode, they're like lacking sleep, they're lacking reasoning, and they're and they're struggling with that. They're struggling to create that balance, so when they take 2 weeks off, it's not enough time. If you're a high performer, you need more time off than 2 weeks in a row in order to like get your get in back alignment within your body. And I just think that sometimes we just have that 2 weeks and you're going like, oh, I'm fine, and it's just, I'm fine, frustrated, insecure, neurotic, and emotionally unstable. I'm fine. And in reality, you're sitting here going, I could have used another week. Yeah.
But don't you also find that, don't you also find that after you take the 2 week break off, right? You might be a little bit more relaxed, but then you go right back into where you've left off and start behaving in that same way.
Oh, for sure. I was gone for 2 weeks just at the end of the year and the first week this year. And when I came back, the day I was in there, I just sat back because in the summertime when I took a week off and I got back 2 days later, I was as stressed out, if not more, than I was before I left to go on vacation. Because it's just like nothing that I put in place was being done in this business. And it was working like clockwork before I left. I'm going like, what's the problem? You can't follow a simple rule, and then in January, I expected that. So I didn't have the same reaction that I had when I came back. It's just like, I distanced myself from the outcome.
Which is hard to do. So you might have covered this, but I'm going to ask you this more explicitly. What first showed you that high performers were hitting invisible ceilings even when they were doing everything right?
Because they kept on sabotaging themselves, and we learned those sabotage, mechanisms to protect ourselves, so to speak, because we would go and I would say, there's you keep on having the same behavior over and over and again, and then and then you're thinking like, well, why does this keep on happening to me? Why do I keep on, like getting like fed up with my job? Or like, why is it that every time I get to a certain point, something catastrophic happens? It's just like, how do we manifest those things, in our lives? And the thing is that, we have built-in messages that come from our childhood that tell us like, you can't do that, or it's just like, you're not good enough. Or it's just like, or it creates other problems in communication with your relationships, whether they're at home or else in the office. And then you get with that wrong crowd, so to speak, and you're doing that 5 o'clock happy hour thing, and you're downing a couple of drinks before you get home. And the next thing you know, you're 40 years old and you have diabetes, you have acid reflux, you have high triglycerides, and your A1C levels for diabetes are high, and they're trying to tell you that you need medication for all three of them, which would put you on 4 meds, and it doesn't mean that it's going to help you. It's just
So
masking the symptoms.
definitely. Yeah, and we're so quick on to get prescribed medications and then to also take them. I've been pushing back when I say to my doctors something and they're like, okay, we're going to give you this one. It's like, no, what are the natural ways of getting this done? What else can it be? Because let's get to the root cause. So you said we self-sabotage. Can you give an example of that so our listeners could understand maybe, how do
Sure.
they recognize they're self-sabotaging themselves?
Well, it could be in a lot of different fashions. It could be, you're up for a job promotion, and so your reports start getting sloppy. You're not putting out that excellence that you once put out. You start missing meetings. Perhaps you have, you're suddenly sick all the time. You're not feeling well. It's just like you now have gut issues that you never had before. So that self-sabotage is like, things that what you eat, how you exercise. You might get suddenly, some people tell me sometimes like, I'm so I'm so accident prone lately, and I said, and I'll ask about that. Or, they get triggered by, a member of their family comes home from overseas, and the whole house goes chaotic. And they don't have anything that anchors them. So they will go out of their way trying to get an anchor, whether it's food, place, person, thing, or an event. And a lot of times those things, when you add them together, it's just like all of a sudden you're thinking, I'm going down this straight road right here, and that's my road to nirvana. And all of a sudden you find yourself like, how did I get over here? Why, and what was that decision that made me make a different decision than going forward? And because we do that even when we make bad mistakes for sabotaging, like when we made bad mistakes in decisions about finances, like, oh, that sounds like a really great, great, investment, then you find out that, you just got to losing $200,000. Just like, wow, that wasn't good.
Right. When it comes to in terms of money, it's a little bit easier to see. But in the example you gave of a promotion, and actually it's interesting that someone just shared this with me that they're experiencing, is that they've been in the position for a while. They've done excellent work. They've brought things into flow, but something's changed, and all of a sudden their role and work hasn't changed, but all of a sudden the output has changed. It's not as good anymore. They're working very hard. They're trying to make sure they have the checklist and looking at everything, but something or other is always going wrong. And it's like the universe does not have my back now.
Well, for sure. And something that's interesting, a recent example is that, I was working on this guy, and I said to him, well, I said, tell me about what you do at nighttime. And I said, you watch the news? And he said, I haven't in a long time. Recently, I've been watching the news. Are you waking up more exhilarated? No. And when you get up, you have a hard time waking up? Yes. And I said, is it affecting how you do your job? Yes. Because he's a person who owns a business and has contact with one-to-one people all the time. I've had more, what kind of things have happened? I've had more people complain about the product that they had that I, helped create for them, and I have to do it all over again, and so, and then, but they don't change because they're addicted to that. If they get something from watching the news, or they get something from what they ate that makes them feel exhausted, and and one of his big culprits was he's diabetic, and before he went to sleep at night, he'd have like 3 cups. He would eat 2 to 3 cups of cooked oatmeal, and I went, wow, that's a good way to raise your cholesterol up. I mean, not cholesterol, but your blood sugar levels before you go to sleep. And if you don't have your blood sugar levels don't tone out, your cortisol levels skyrocket, and you're in the bathroom about every 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And so I go, that's a problem. I said, why are you trying to kill yourself? There was dead silence when I asked that. And I said, because clearly you're doing something that's not working, and I said, I've had a conversation with you about food before and how food's medicine, but some food, you shouldn't be eating at night. Is to eat in the morning because you want your blood sugar levels to go up, not before you go to sleep.
Right.
And
Right.
you know, it's
But
and
you're
somebody,
eating cherries.
yeah, or just like how about just drinking some water?
Mm.
Maybe a little bit of water, which might make you still go to the bathroom, but not as often. And it's being
Right.
hydrated.
So it's kind of like you're longing for something and then you're filling it with food or something else,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, it could be, it could be food, it could be alcohol, it could be, drinking. All of a sudden, you go to a restaurant. We all know people who have been on diets. They go to a restaurant and the loaf of bread is put down on the table and they engulf it, you know,
Yes.
and then their blood sugar levels are all over the place. They're hungry, and then they don't eat enough of the right food that rebalances out the blood sugar because their blood sugar is already crashing before that.
So
Yeah.
step one is to really make sure you're eating healthy meals and
Mhm.
safe foods before going to bed, or don't eat anything before going to bed. Have a better dinner,
2 hours.
so you're not hungry.
Hmm.
So you often speak about blind spots in high achievers. What are the most common blind spots that you see in founders and executives as they scale?
They forget where they come from. And as they
Mhm.
scale, like when that happens, it's like a more entitlement or more self-importance, and or like they have a personification that they want to portray, and they forget, like, where their roots were at. And I see that like time and time. That's like, and that blindsides them because they lose the respect. If you're working with a team, then you don't have that interaction from the team from that. And especially, sometimes in those scenarios, is that person becomes unavailable. They're not approachable, and so and they're off. And I've heard tales of stories from people who've told me that guy was really nice until he got into a position where he had a leadership role, and then it was very difficult to, like engage with him because when he engaged, he, A, wasn't listening, or when we had meetings, there was like nothing that the team was not involved, in those decisions about what was going to happen and that. So
So is it that they feel they're too good for everyone now, or?
well, I think that some people aren't really suited for the positions that they're in. So when they get in a position that they're not suited for, I think they act as if, and
Okay,
it
okay.
might work. Acting as if might be a good idea. Like when you don't know, when you get on stage, just act as if you know what you're doing, um, and that's a great thing. But not you can't do it every day and sustain it. I mean,
Right.
it's like the imposter syndrome comes out, right?
So this is where you really need to understand what your strengths are and then hire the right people for those roles,
Hmm.
because
Right.
your job as a founder and executive is to work on the business, not in the business.
Hmm. Right.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know,
So then how do you help them optimize the results that they're looking for so they don't
well, it
burn out?
depends upon Well, it depends upon what results they're looking for. So people I've been speaking with recently, somebody has this like, he's on, he's on, he's on, he's on, and there's issues, and like, he's going from one meeting to the other meeting, and I said, "Do you ever have any time to yourself during the daytime?" And he goes, "Not really." And because I don't have time to myself during the daytime, I don't eat well. So
Mhm.
his goal was to have better lifestyle things that he could do to support his sustainability nutrition wise so he could maintain his energy, and like, even like meditations and things like that. But there's that situation. There's people get sick, and people have, I spoke with somebody recently that had a host of like, metabolic syndrome going on where he had high triglycerides, he was pre-diabetic, you know, um, and, he had, the acid reflux. I just recently talked to somebody who had those kinds of symptoms, and his dilemma was like, he wanted to do something, but he's got, something, in the family going on shortly, like within a month, and in his culture, it's a big thing. And, so, and also, I'm not cheap, so I have 40 years of experience and I have, education. So it's just like, I'm not offering my knowledge for free. And so, I think when people hear, sometimes it's just like, your health. I mean, what's your investment in your health? I mean, so far you haven't done a great job.
Right.
You're on meds. You've got 5 different diagnoses, 3 to 5 different diagnoses. I feel like, and do you think they're going to get better on their own? I don't think so. And if you don't have a creative alternative way in order to go from point A to point Z, they just keep on accumulating and it keeps on getting overwhelming. So you never ask the right question, because if you don't know the right question to ask, you can't get the right answer in order to make a decision. Right? And so then
Yes.
you're stuck in that space again and again. It's just, and you're not moving, you're not able to move forward in a very confident way and making decisions that are based upon scientifically driven knowledge.
That is so very true. I mean, health is one of the things we put at the very bottom of the priority list, if it's on that list. Just like putting yourself on a priority list, right? Because you're always busy working. My husband still works a lot, and I asked him one day, and I hope he doesn't listen to this episode. He's like, "Why are you sharing this?" But one day I just paused and I said, what are we really working so hard for? We've always been, I think it's a habit. We're always working till 12, 1 o'clock. We wake up early and we work all day and we do that. I take 2, 3 hours out during my day to go for a walk, go to the park and do nothing, especially the times that I know I'm not productive, sitting at my laptop, or have a conversation with someone. But it's like, we're not getting more results. We're still stressed out. And what are we really striving for? What are we doing? So I think it's these kind of questions that you need to pause and ask. With the way you're working and with your lifestyle and with your health issues, are you really getting anywhere? And if you're not, then there's something wrong. Because if you're working 14, 16 hours a day every day, you should be getting a little further ahead.
And you should be getting farther than just a little.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
working 16 hours a day. I have in the cycle that I'm in right now, I have on Wednesdays and Thursdays, I'm up at 5:55, and I don't get back to my house until 7:30. And so one of the things that I found, what I create for my clients, is I create for them a calendar of events to happen within a day. So at this time, do this. At this time, and we start with that, and we have to, like, where do we have to alter it? For instance, for myself, I exercise every morning. So I know when I have to be out of bed exactly in order to, like, do my ritual and then do my exercise, and then put makeup on, put my hair, put, clothes on and get out the door. And, but it always includes nutrition, and even at the end of the day, like that wind down, because I tell some people, I go, on Wednesdays, you do not watch TV. Because if, going into Thursday, if you got to get up at the same time on Wednesday, you're going to be exhausted, and you just like, you avoid conflict, you listen to peaceful things that's soothing to your body and the functions, and you like eat and drink things that are more nutritious. Because a lot of times when we get stressed, we have a tendency to want to eat sugar and, or sugary type things. And they'll make you spin out even further. It's just like you're on a hamster wheel that you can see other people walking, but you're running for no apparent reason and you're not getting any farther in front.
Exactly. So let's define, what does optimized human performance mean, and what does that look like day to day?
Well, I think that optimized performance on a day-to-day basis, is waking up, hitting the ground running, like in my routine that I do for instance, on Mondays, I work in the morning from my house, and then in the afternoon I hike. When I go on in the car to do my commute, I don't talk to anybody.
Mm.
I either am in silence or I'm listening to, like very soothing music. Um, and so, but I have that routine that I do. So it's just like and if you do those things, then you have time for more. And it's
Mm.
amazing how much you can fit in when you have, other things to do. I see like my biggest dilemma right now, for instance, for me is, answering my LinkedIn messages. I have to check them. And some of them I have, um, but I have a style to do it. And so I sit, relax, listen to like pieced out music. And on a Saturday morning between like 11 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I take the rest of the day off,
Mm.
and if I have something to do on Sunday, I try not to do anything on Sunday. I just, like go out and buy food, cook, do anything. If I don't feel like buying food is peaceful for me, I won't do it. But I'm always looking for, and I help my clients have that same kind of experience. Like, I have a family I've got to hang out with. I have family time. And it's like, so what is it that you really like to do with your family?
Mm.
Because it's just like, like watching movies. That's not, like you might like that, but it's got to be something that feeds your soul, and also feeds your mind. Because, and the Chinese always say, where the mind goes, the body follows. And
Yeah.
so if you can, it's giving that food for thought and the food that your brain needs, so that the body can have peace of mind also. And it shares that.
That's really great. So what I'm hearing you say is that really incorporate more mindfulness, add moments of more peace and joy, that
Mhm.
activities that bring you peace and joy, and make sure they are scattered on a daily basis. It's not like once a week or once a month. You can do different things once a week, once a month that brings you joy, but it's really something, small moments that you can actually add in on a daily basis too.
Yeah, the small moments like matter. It could be just, um, taking a hot bath with the door locked. Nobody can, dogs can't get if you have animals, you know. I used to have
Yeah.
a female dog that as soon as I got into the bathtub and she heard water, she would, like headbutt the door, because she wanted to come in because she wanted to get in the bathtub. I'm going, this is not your playtime, So I'd have to figure out how to, you know, or else I would just let her in and put her ball on the floor and she would throw it in the water. So I was like, Simone, get out of here. But creating that space, I mean, it could be, you said that you spend a couple hours outside, right? And it's just
Yeah.
like, that's good for you because then you're in like your natural environment, and I always tell it, because sometimes I call it go hug a tree,
Yes.
moment. Go listen to music, put headphones on and listen to music for a half hour,
Yeah.
or I have a meditation that I really like that when I do it, especially if I'm traveling, I can pull into a stop and put my headphones on and listen to that. And I feel totally energized. Like I just woke up in the morning and I'm ready to drive a lot farther,
Mm.
because you've got to take mindfulness about, like what's in your environment, the chaos of it, it's like, if it's cluttered, get rid of it. You have to like, have I used this? Do I
Yeah.
really need this? Can I have access to this online? And then
Yeah.
you use those things, for your, like, to create better space around you. Burn incense if you have to. Just, do something that makes you happy. Just do like whatever it is that makes you happy. Keep on doing more of it.
Yeah, and that's a good measure. Are you happy on a day-to-day basis? Because life is meant to be enjoyable. It's not, we're not supposed to be grinding every single day and then working towards an outcome. We can enjoy every single day and maybe get even better outcome. There was by Business Review, a study done between two companies, one that paused and one that didn't pause. And the one that paused, I'm going to tell it very quickly. The one that took breaks in between and really stopped to see where they're at, how things are going, where do they need to readjust, ended up making more money than the company that just kept going, and trying to achieve their goal. So it's the same thing. You have to slow down in order to go fast. And if you're not enjoying life every single day, I think that's why you're not getting those results. And when you're working so hard, I used to feel this way, that I'm working so hard and I'm not enjoying daily and I'm not getting the output that I want. I kind of just gave up and just stopped doing all the other things. And then I just realigned how I worked and I ended up getting better results.
Well, it's sleep deprivation, actually is very similar to being drunk, and and your responses when you're that tired or if you're that stressed out are slowed significantly as if you are drunk, so
Wow.
and that's statistically proven in different studies that they have done and white papers and such. With sleep deprivation is a big problem.
That is really interesting. So, number one, those people who say they've never been drunk, you actually have been if you've been sleep deprived. That's what it feels like.
Right. Because that's exactly, it's just like you're thinking, you're slow to react, and a lot of the accidents, that's the number one reason why people have car accidents, is because of sleep deprivation.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. Well, this time that we've spent together, Dr. Pat, has been truly amazing. And I think what I've learned from this conversation is that performance is not about doing more. It's about aligning your system inside your body with the system inside your business and your work. And when physiology and mindset and strategy are congruent, then your capacity can expand.
Absolutely. You hit right on.
Yes.
Perfect. Now let's implement that. Okay.
Let's implement that. Yes. Start with today and start doing add in things that bring you joy. And things that aren't bringing you joy, I would start questioning, why am I doing this? What is the purpose of it? And can it be done in a different way that brings you more joy? Because life.
Well,
Go ahead.
I've always had this motto: if it's not fun, don't do it. If you can't figure out how to make it fun, because your life should be fun, then change your life.
Yes. Wonderful. Dr. Pat, any other words of wisdom?
Well, one thing I always tell people, because I find this right straight across the board too, is to make sure you hydrate and you're drinking quality water, not from the tap. And, maybe putting a little bit of flavoring in it, like lemon juice, because you have to, in order to function, to think well, feel well, and move well, you must be hydrated.
Yes.
It's not negotiable.
Exactly. Yeah. I also have a wellness program, and I always say in there, it's nutrition, hydration, and movement and mindfulness that are the key things. So you've said the same thing. So amazing. Dr. Pat, thank you so much for being here with us today. This has been an amazing conversation, and I know our listeners will get a lot out of it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and happy to come back.
Definitely. Well, you can find Dr. Pat's her information in our show notes. So be sure to go there and click on it and read up more on her and connect with her. And I want to leave you with this one thought. Are you optimizing your output, or are you optimizing your foundation? There is a difference in that. So when I redefine success through integration, everything has shifted. Not because I slowed down, but because I aligned. I realigned. I'm in a different season of my life now. I want to do things differently. So I realigned to that point. I want you to remember this, that your brilliance deserves sustainability. Build it in a way your body can carry it and the way you can enjoy your life, because life is meant to be fun and enjoyable. Until next time, this is Seema. Stay aligned, stay aware, and keep stepping into your brilliance.
And I want to take a moment to mention that the content shared in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. My guests and I share personal experiences and real life examples that have helped us live our best lives, much like friends sharing stories. While we strive to provide valuable information, it's important to consult with professionals for advice tailored to your individual circumstances. Thank you for being part of our community, and thank you for spending this time with me. Remember, your story is your strength. Until next time, stay inspired and keep making a difference. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Break Free to Brilliance podcast, and I hope you had some key takeaways that you can implement right away. Be sure to subscribe to Break Free to Brilliance wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also follow along with us on social media using the links in the show notes below. We'll see you again for the next episode.